Good morning, 9C and 9L students. Welcome back to another session of our online learning platform. Yes, this is your teacher, Mrs. Campbell, and we are going to continue as we started last week to revise, the development and use of resources, looking specifically at the impact on national growth and development. So we will be going through the revision and then you will be able to complete the quiz as was promised. Now let's look at the objectives. The objectives for this revision, which are based on the objectives for the lesson that was started in class while we were still at school, are to explain and use correctly the terms resources, natural resources, renewable resources, non-renewable resources, minerals, sustainable use and development, the Human Development Index, climate change. Now, we are also going to need to distinguish between economic growth and development, gross national product, and gross domestic product. We will need to outline the factors that contribute to national development, evaluate the importance of the development of a country's human and natural resources, as well as assess the ways in which Jamaica develops its natural and human resources. Now, let's get right into it. Some persons may be unclear as to what some definitions are, so we're just going through. And this would be especially helpful for the auditory, and the visual learners. Now, resources are things that we use in our everyday life. You were excellent at giving me definitions of resources while we were at school. Things we use in our everyday life, things that make life comfortable, all of those. As long as we're able to utilize them, they are resources. Now, we have natural resources, and natural resources can be classified as either renewable or non-renewable. Natural resources are things that occur in nature. Man did not put them there, they were created by God. And these would include things like minerals such as bauxite, plants, animals, water, air, light, etc. Now, when we talk about renewable and non-renewable, we are really saying that the renewable ones are those that we cannot finish. And even if we would deplete them to a point, they come back within our lifetime. We will see them again before we die. So say, for example, even if we're experiencing a drought and we have very little or no water in an area for a period of time, sooner or later the rain will fall again and we will have water, or there will be water in a river somewhere. So we can't completely ever finish the water that we have on earth. It's the same for sunlight and air, plants, animals. Even though we may mistreat the forest, usually trees grow back and persons would be planting back trees. The same goes for the animals. They continue to reproduce. But the non-renewable resources now are like bauxite, coal, gas, etc. These things, once they are finished, that's it. We will not experience seeing those things or having them to use while we are alive. Maybe never again. So the renewable ones are the ones that can be renewed, can be had again, used again. Non-renewable, once they're finished, that's it for good. Minerals, and both are considered to be natural resources because they're both placed in nature by God. Minerals are things that are formed naturally in the earth, like I had said before, such as bauxite, oil, and other things. Sustainable use refers to using things in such a way that it can sustain, and sustain means to keep, to serve for a period of time. So sustainable use is really just saying that it will exist for a long time and into the next generation. We won't finish it, or we won't abuse it in such a way that it won't last long enough. Sorry about that. Development, of course, refers to improvement or growth in the quality of life or technology or something. As long as there's an improvement, that is considered to be development. Human resources. Human resources refers to the people, the individuals that make up the workforce. So I am a part of the human resource. You are a part of the human resource. So the ability that we have to think, to learn, to invent, to create, all of those things. They are what we have as resources, or capabilities, or talents, or gifts. So human resources really refers to the people. Now we're going to some technical terms like Human Development Index, HDI. This is a number that they use to rank countries into different groups, such as whether they are developed countries, developing countries, or underdeveloped countries. But what does it mean? The number ranges from 0 to 1, with 1 being the best. So it refers to how they measure it is in terms of this population, in terms of how long a person is expected to live once they are born, because of health care and other things, literacy level, and the standard of living in a country. If I'm not mistaken, Jamaica's HDI is about 0.62, but then a country that has a HDI of about 0.8 or 0.9, of course, has a higher human development index, which means they would have been experienced maybe longer life expectancy, a greater level of literacy, and or maybe a higher standard of living. And naturally, you would be expecting that a country of this index or higher would be a developed country, such as maybe the United States or England. Climate change. This is when we notice, as the word says, climate change in the climate. Weather refers to day-to-day events in the atmosphere, but climate refers to a long period of time. So say, for example, we're used to Jamaica being hot, all of a sudden it starts to get cold, or we're used to it being rainy during certain months, but no, it's not rainy anymore over a period of time, or the hurricane seasons change or get longer or shorter. No, when we experience or see these things, then it will be referred to as climate change. And of course, climate change is dependent on how we use the environment. Economic growth. This reflects an increase in the country's gross domestic product. So growth refers to the GDP, and GDP, as was said in class, is what a country produces within the country, inside of the country locally. And when there is an increase in this, it is considered to be economic growth. However, a GNP refers to the total goods and services produced by a country during a specific period of time, usually a year, and this includes economic production by its people or by the country, even outside of the country's borders. So say, for example, the US might outsource some of its jobs or factories to China. When these companies are producing in China and making money, it is considered and calculated to be a part of the US's GNP. So if Jamaica, on the other hand, has, let's say Wesinco has a factory in Trinidad as well, then that would be calculated into the country's GNP. But it would not be, the Trinidad factory's production would not be calculated into the GDP of the country because it was not done within Jamaica. So I hope you're clear on these matters. And now, with that clarification of the definitions, let's get into the rest of the lesson. And we spoke about economic growth already. Economic development, as opposed to economic growth, is a broader term. It indicates an increase in a citizen's quality of life and is often measured using the HDI, the Human Development Index. So while economic growth is dependent on local production and how that is increasing the GDP, economic growth is dependent on the quality of life of the citizens, the literacy level of the citizens, as well as their expectancy of life at birth, among other things. So economic growth, production, the increase in production in the country, economic development, increase in the quality of life. Now, there are some things, of course, that contribute to national development. To everything in life, there's a cause and an effect. So what are some things that contribute to the development of a country? Obviously, we're talking about resources. So resources must have some impact on the country's development. But how and what resources? Well, I told you before that human resources refers to its people. So if that is the case, then it means the literacy level of the citizens or of the workforce or the working population, the level, not just the literacy now, but the level of education, the skills of the people, etc., will impact directly on how productive and how economically the country will develop. So the quality of life of people will improve if the education level of the citizens are high, if the health care for citizens is good, and all these things are in place, then of course the quality of life in Jamaica would be better. And so students, you would see, as was said in class, that you and I have a direct impact and a direct role to play in the development of the country, and this will lead into the Vision 2030 lesson that's coming up. So if we idle and waste our time, if we do not develop our resources and our skills and abilities, then we will definitely negatively impact the economic development of Jamaica. Another resource that's important in the development of the country is the physical capital, and this is referring to money. For the economy to develop, of course, we need money. Money makes the mayor go. So we need money for investment in business, to pay the workforce, and for a host of other things. And then we also need natural resources. The natural resources we can utilize to make money, we can develop, we can manufacture, we can produce, we can use to enhance our quality of life, and so many other things. And finally, technology. So the level of technology, the exposure to technology, the knowledge of technology, the use of technology, of course, in a technological age such as this, in the 21st century, will of course impact and have a direct relation into how developed our economy is. So any country that is going to be developed have to focus on these things, 4 things that I have mentioned. Now here is a picture of a diagram that pretty much summarizes what I had just said. So determinants of economic development, and we see capital, natural resources, economic systems. On the other side, we are seeing human resources, technical know-how, general education, etc. Importance of the development of a country's human resource. I would have alerted to this earlier, that the skills and education of the labor force have a direct impact on the growth of an economy. So a skilled, well-trained workforce is more productive and definitely will produce a higher quality output that adds efficiency to an economy. And not just this skilled, well-trained workforce, but a healthy workforce as well. And a shortage of skilled labor, of course, will deter economic growth. People who are illiterate, people who are uneducated, people who are sick, all those things will definitely drag on the economy and lead to higher rates of unemployment. The natural resources are important for the development of any country. As was said before, in order for us to generate energy, we need fossil fuels. And for industrial development, it requires mineral resources. So at the root or at the base of development, of course, is the availability of natural resources. So a country that has a lot of natural resources is poised for economic growth and economic development. However, we will still need the technology and the human resource and the capital to develop this. Now, we have come to the end of this revision course, and I want you to think and type back in the WhatsApp group as soon as you have completed watching this video or going through the lesson that was posted in the WhatsApp last week. How does Jamaica ensure that we benefit from the natural resources that we have? Right? So we are assessing the ways in which Jamaica develops its natural and human resources. So we know what natural resources are and we know what human resources are. But how does Jamaica ensure that we benefit from the natural resources? What does it do? As a country, how do we treat them? What do we do with the natural resources? How do we ensure that Jamaica's economy is better because of the natural resources we have? And I'm sure you're aware of some natural resources that your beautiful, beautiful island Jamaica has. Next, what is Jamaica doing to make sure that as many Jamaicans as possible can be